Bienvenidos a Soy Violento, Soy Macabro Podcast. Yo soy Ali.
Y yo soy Dee.
Y hoy Dee nos contará de un caso que sucedió en Syracuse, New York. Advertencia: la información de este caso puede ser desencadenante para algunos. Tenga en cuenta que algunos de estos casos pueden involucrar menores de edad, abuso, violación o violencia. Escuchen con precaución.
Warning: the information on this case can be triggering to some. Please be advised that some of these cases may involve children, abuse, rape, and violence. Listen with caution. Turning 21 is meant to be a milestone, a celebration of new beginnings, independence, and dreams waiting to unfold. For Joselyn Johana Toaquiza, it should have been just that. After reconnecting with a childhood friend, she accepted the invitation to celebrate her 21st birthday at an Airbnb in Syracuse, New York. On the surface, it seemed like a thoughtful gesture, but within hours, the celebration turned into something far more sinister. This is the tragic case of Joselyn Johana Toaquiza. Joselyn Johana Toaquiza was born on June 18th, 2003, in a small town on the outskirts of Ecuador. Her parents are farmers and in order to provide a better future for her, they decided to move from their small town to Quito in Ecuador, which is like one of the bigger cities in Ecuador. She spent most of her time studying and living in the city, but she felt like she needed more out of life. She wanted to chase her dreams and becoming something more, and it felt like her small town was like stopping her from doing that. According to her uncle Paul, her family, him and his family migrated to the US in 2003, seeking a better economic opportunity. As reported at the Syracuse.com, Joselyn and her family endured a grueling journey crossing parts of the Amazon by foot, making their way through Mexico before reaching the US border. According to the Post, Joselyn entered the US illegally in 2023, crossing the border into Lukeville, Arizona. She told the Border Patrol officials that she feared to return to Ecuador due to threats from a former romantic partner. But there's no official information if this was true. Shortly after entering the US, she decided to either go to Chicago or go to New York. Throughout the discussion with the family, they ended up in Syracuse, New York. Her uncle Paul told news outlets that Joselyn lived with him and his wife and their children on the north side of New York. Paul also recalls that Joselyn aspired to become a flight attendant since she loved to travel the world, and she said that she wanted to travel the world. Her biggest, dreams is that she just wanted to travel the world, and she found that becoming a flight attendant would be beneficial because she would see different parts of the world by that career path. Her main goal was to work really hard and improve her English and eventually becoming a citizen in the US. Within weeks of arriving, Joselyn secured a job as a housekeeper at the Hotel Concord in Syracuse. Joselyn's manager, Christopher Renna, it's Renna, from Hotel Concord, described her as someone who, quote, always had a smile on her face and greeted everyone, even if she didn't know them. A different manager says that Joselyn was a pleasure to work with, always willing to help others and picking extra shifts and just bringing joy to anybody that she'd encounter. Friends described Joselyn as being bubbly and sweet and someone who was impossible not to fall in love with. On Joselyn's GoFundMe page, a coworker wrote, quote, "Soy una compañera de trabajo de Joselyn. Ella era una joven con una gran sonrisa y una personalidad alegre y conocida por su amabilidad." Though she had only worked at the hotel for a few months, she quickly captured the heart of those around her. But everything changed when she turned 21 years old. Her coworkers grew concerned when she didn't show up for her work shift the next day after her celebration. It's unclear how they reconnected, but in the days leading up to Jocelyn's birthday, John Chacaguasai Ilbis re-entered her life. Joselyn and John had met in Ecuador during their school years. According to family and friends, they were childhood friends, but never romantically involved. After graduating, they lost touch and went their separate ways. In early 2023, John traveled to the U.S., crossing the Texas border. He was detained by Homeland Security, but was released shortly due to overcapacity in the detention centers. John eventually settled in Spring Valley, a town in Rockland County, located roughly 35 miles northwest of New York City, near the New York/New Jersey border. There he worked as a dishwasher in a restaurant. After reconnecting with Joselyn, John booked an Airbnb in Syracuse using a fake ID. He traveled from Spring Valley to Syracuse to meet with her after her shift at the Hotel Concord. According to Infoba, John told Joselyn that he had rented an Airbnb and that he wanted to invite her over to celebrate her birthday with him. According to different outlets, they weren't supposed to go anywhere. They were just going to meet up and talk and kind of reconnect their friendship. And she was like, oh, well, yeah, we can go to your place and talk for a bit. So it wasn't like he rented it for both of them. He basically rented the Airbnb to kind of stay there, see her, and then go back home. Surveillance footage captured Joselyn and John arriving at the Airbnb just before 4:30 p.m. Inside, John had decorated the space and bought a cake and a new pair of sneakers and placed miniature wine bottles with the words, quote, "I love you," written on them.
Oh, wow.
I know. Yeah. On the surface, it seemed like the perfect way to celebrate Jocelyn's 21st birthday. However, within hours of arriving, the celebration took a dark, tragic turn. Roughly 3 hours later, John is seen on surveillance footage walking out of the Airbnb carrying Joselyn on his shoulders. So it's almost like if he was giving her a piggyback ride. So think about it like he's walking and she's clung onto him he's giving her a piggyback ride.
Okay, I thought it was more of maybe
just
diciendo que está
slung.
borracha y se la puso hacia aquí.
No, it was almost clinging onto her. So her legs were wrapped around him.
Oh, okay.
And her arms were over his shoulders. Somehow he was able to kind of make it seem like she was just clinging onto him through when he was leaving the Airbnb. The most unsettling part of the footage is that as soon as John approaches the end of the driveway, a Syracuse Police Department patrol car drove right by them without appearing to notice the horrifying situation. A few hours later, John is seen returning to the Airbnb. He went inside and emerged outside again 10 minutes later, now wearing a different outfit, carrying a backpack and a small bag. He then boards a lift, which took him directly to the Greyhound station on his way to New York.
I feel like you're probably going to say this, but ya iba muerta cuando la llevaba.
Well, the thing is, so it's unclear what her status is, just because they can't see her face, they don't see any blood. It almost just seems like they're together, he's just carrying her, so they don't really know. But most of
if she had passed away or she was.
Exactly. Or,
unconscious.
yeah,
He was under the influence, nothing.
exactly. They don't
It's
know.
I guess because, like, even cuando explicas que pasó una patrulla, for them, it's like, maybe it was like, "Oh, it's a couple, and she's behind them. Maybe
Yeah.
she's, saying something to him, or she's, like, laying on him," or
Yeah.
it wasn't a
And it wasn't like if it
weird
was like slow motion where it's like everything's happening very slow. It's almost like they just kind of like just passed, like race, like they were walking straight towards to the street, and the car, like the police car, just drives like right by them. So it's
mm,
not like it was like slowing down to see what was going on.
right.
It was just kind of
'Cause there was
patrolling it.
nothing suspicious, so,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. It was just they were just patrolling the street, so it wasn't like they were looking for something
Mhm.
suspicious. On June 19th, the day after Jocelyn's 21st birthday, Jocelyn's family reported her missing when she failed to come home or show up to work. The missing person report spread rapidly through New York, shaking the small community to its core. One of the key breakthroughs within the case is that the owner of the Airbnb contacted the police as soon as she saw the image of Jocelyn going around. According to the report, they found blood on the walls and in the bedroom of the Airbnb, and noted that the person who had rented the Airbnb appeared to have left in a hurry because of the state of the home. She also provided authorities with the surveillance footage of the guests who rented the Airbnb, who she assumed that was the girl that they were looking for, which is Jocelyn. And they told him that she was accompanied by a man. But since he had a fake ID, it didn't match anything that they assumed that it was a person that she knew. When the investigators showed the footage to Jocelyn's family, they confirmed that the man in the video was John, a former classmate from Ecuador. Authorities immediately began to search for John, circulating his photos on the missing persons report, and tried to find him as a person of interest in Jocelyn's case. However, 4 days after the report of the missing person went around, a body was discovered in a shallow grave about 15 feet in the woods of Lincoln Park in Syracuse. The park was actually located directly across the street from the Airbnb where Jocelyn was last seen. Onondaga County District Attorney Bill Fitzpatrick later confirmed that Jocelyn had died from strangulation. With this discovery, the investigation intensified, and John was now considered a person of interest in a homicide case. On the night of the murder, John arrived to New York City and quickly began using Jocelyn's credit cards for purchasing things that he needed, as well as subscribing for an OnlyFans account. I know. Police tracked his movements by tracing the credit card transactions. And
I mean,
according
good. I'm glad.
Yeah,
I'm glad he used
exactly.
it because that's how they were probably able to get him.
Exactly. And one of the transactions, I guess he was trying to use her PIN multiple times, that it came to the point that it blocked the card. So that's how they knew where he was around the area that he was in. According to John's attorney, Ben Coffin, John was eventually arrested while in the hospital after allegedly being mugged and sexually assaulted by a sex worker. An incident that Coffin cited as evidence that John was putting himself in dangerous situation after the murder of Jocelyn. However, other reports suggest that John returned back to Spring Valley to continue his job as a dishwasher, and instead of turning himself into the police. Some sources claim that he had planned to flee, but ultimately changed his mind and surrendered to authorities. On June 25th of the same year, John was arrested and transported from Spring Valley to Syracuse to face his trial. He initially pleaded not guilty to the charges of second-degree murder and the concealing of a human corpse. After appearing in Syracuse City Court, John claimed that he had no recollection of the crime because he had been intoxicated. Remember the little wine bottles that they found in the home? They said that they were both drinking to the point that he got drunk and he doesn't remember what happened. However, in July of
There
that
was like
same
no other drugs or
no,
nothing where, I know
it
we
could
talked about
alter
this
his
before, they could alter, like hallucinate or see things. Like, no, it was just wine.
It was just wine. He said that he was intoxicated and he doesn't remember anything that happened that night. There is no reason on why he did it, what happened, nothing. So they only have the evidence of what the prosecutor has, that Jocelyn was strangled and that she was buried. Yeah, and the video.
That video.
But they don't have any reason on why it happened, how he did it, where he did it, nothing. He didn't confess to anything. He just accepted the plea deal and just said that he was too intoxicated to remember anything that happened that day. However, in July of that same year, John accepted a plea deal and pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and concealing of a human corpse. On January 21st of 2025, John pleaded guilty to Jocelyn's murder and of disposing her body in Lincoln Park. On March 10th, which happened a few weeks ago, he appeared in court for his sentencing. During the final testimonies, prosecutor Anthony Copani referred to John as, quote, a cold-blooded killer. In his statement, Judge Ted Limpert expressed that Jocelyn's death was something that, quote, they, referring to her parents and her family, can't understand, nor can I, nor can the people of this community. He noted that the family's pain is unimaginable. John also chose to address the court, speaking directly to Jocelyn's family, who were participating via live on video recording from Ecuador. He said, quote, all of this was in Spanish, by the way, but it was translated to English. Quote, I want to apologize to Jocelyn's family, to my family, and to my friends for all the pain and suffering that I have caused. I feel really bad and ashamed for the situation, for ignoring my principles and values. I understand and respect their pain. I acknowledge the damage I caused, and I'm responsible for my actions. I regret everything, and I wholeheartedly ask for the forgiveness. I wasn't conscious of what I did. A letter from the Toaquiza family were also read out loud in court, including a letter from her father, in which he wrote, quote, Estoy devastado por tu partida, mi princesa. As a part of the plea deal, Judge Ted Limpert sentenced John to 23 years to life for the death of Joselyn. It's heartbreaking to think that a life can be taken by someone who was supposed to be a friend, someone you have been excited to see. Right. Even more devastating is losing that life on a day meant to mark a milestone in your future. Joselyn had her entire life ahead of her. She dreamt of traveling the world, exploring new places, and making the most of every opportunity. She left home and journeyed miles away to turn those dreams into a reality. But in an instant, everything was stolen from her, taken by someone who blamed intoxication for his actions. Our hearts go out to Jocelyn's family, friends, co-workers, and everybody and anybody who has been touched by her story. You were meant to fulfill your dreams, Joselyn. We hope that through the justice you received, your loved ones can find some sort of measure of peace. This is the tragic case of Joselyn Johana Toaquiza. So that was the case for this week. I did want to include something as an afterthought from this episode, mostly because I didn't feel like it needed to be included within the episode, just because I felt like it was very disheartening and it took away from Joselyn's story. But it was that the only reason this case really started to gain any sort of momentum, especially in the English side of reporting, was because both of these people were from Ecuador and came to the US to find asylum. And I feel like it's very controversial right now in the political state that we're in, that a lot of people are taking it out of context and using it as a political drive on why immigration and I'm migrating to the US is, I guess,
why it shouldn't happen.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of this specific case was taken out of context just to fit a narrative. And it was very heartbreaking because instead of focusing on the family and like trying to transport Joselyn's body from New York to Ecuador to find her final like resting place, or trying to focus on grilling this guy to understand what would happen with this, a lot of the outlets were focusing on the fact that he was an immigrant. He killed a young woman, and that he was here seeking asylum. Those were like the main topics of each article that I kind of skimmed through. And it was less about her being a victim, her probably not reciprocating his love, more about feminicides and how women are treated in society. It was taken out of context, and it was more focused on why we shouldn't accept immigrants here, or asylum, or try to find any political stands when it comes to immigration.
So you're saying que diciendo como que vienen para acá nada más para hacer eso.
Yeah. To kind of focus like, oh look, this guy is a immigrant and he's killing people, instead of saying like, she's an immigrant, she came here and she was lovely and she was a beautiful person and she was tragically murdered by a friend that was in love with her. Instead of focusing on that, we're focusing on he's an immigrant and this is why we shouldn't have immigrants in the US. So the focus was definitely shifted to fit a political narrative, and they used this case as part of a driving force when it came to the political uproar of voting in 2024. So it was very highlighted in the news about, this is why we shouldn't have immigration or asylum or let people in or open the borders, instead of shifting on other important things like, this is how women are treated in our society. If they don't if
they don't comply, this is what happens.
Exactly. So I just wanted to bring it up.
On the status than
Exactly.
This is a woman who was murdered by someone, like by a man. It was more of this is why we shouldn't let people in, because they're all the same y vienen nada más a hacer esto.
Yeah.
It's that whole putting immigrant in the front.
Yeah.
Not just saying a woman was murdered by someone.
And if you see, if you want to look into it, like even like going through the links and resources that I have linked below in the description of this episode, some of them does just say immigrant man kills woman, immigrant man is sentenced to jail. It's always that phrase that comes up, instead of saying man kills friend for not reciprocating love
Right.
or feminicide in the US. Nothing like that. It's almost like kind of cleansed over by immigrant man. So it's yeah. I feel like if I included that in the case, it would have taken away from the actual message of who Jocelyn was and
Yeah, I
how
got it.
loved she was in a community, even if they only knew her for a couple months, instead of focusing on the asylum and the immigration portion of the case. But yeah, if you want to talk more about this case, or if you have your own opinions and your own thoughts about it, our social media platforms are open. We are on TikTok, Threads, Instagram, Twitter, or X as it's known now, on Blue Sky, and on Facebook as at SVSM_podcast or Soviet podcast. Just type it in and we should pop up. You can also find us on YouTube. Just type in at SV_podcast or Soviet podcast, and our YouTube channel should pop up. You can see the video portion of this episode there completely. If you don't want to stream it on any streaming services, it's free on YouTube. Yeah, so if you want to talk to us through there, just leave a comment on our post or leave us a DM, or let us know what you think about this case. Hopefully it doesn't get into a political space, but if you do have that, we respect your opinions, even though most of the time we have our own. If you want to listen to the rest of the 137,
Yes.
okay.
I was checking as you were talking because I'm like, she's about to ask me, and I'm like,
you're like, I don't remember. Yes. If you want to listen to the rest of the 137 episodes, you can stream it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or wherever you stream podcasts. Just type in Soy Into Macabro podcast, and our whole catalog should be on there. And yeah, am I forgetting anything?
no, you're not. You got everything covered.
Okay, cool.
And thank you guys again for being patient.
I know. Thank you again for being patient. We were having really bad Wi-Fi issues yesterday, so we couldn't record.
Bad.
It was really bad. We couldn't even be on without we weren't even recording. It was just kicking us out.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being patient and for waiting for this episode. We really appreciate it. We always feel bad because we're like, damn it. We really wanted to record on time.
We're trying. It's not our fault. The world, the universe is against us.
Yeah, I told Ali yesterday, I was like, it's Mercury on retrograde again, because
something's going up. Something's going on up there.
Yeah, because I was like, our Wi-Fi was messed up this past week. Your podcast equipment wasn't working last week.
The one before.
Exactly, and then before that, something was going on with me. So it's a lot of things have been.
I think you were sick the one before that.
Yeah. I think I was sick 2 weeks. Yeah, I think so. All I'm saying is that we apologize for the delay on this episode, but we made it up, and you should have it done before the weekend. So thank you so much for waiting and for being very how do I say it? I forgot the word. For being very patient with us.
Yes.
At what?
And I was going to say, and for coming back, because we were gone for 6 weeks, and thank you guys for coming back.
I know it was a long break, but we're back, and we're trying to get back into the rhythm of things, and we really appreciate you and everybody that has been listening and subscribing, and we really appreciate you guys. So yeah.
You were gonna say something the first day official. I don't know. You were saying something before.
Okay, so yeah, I was gonna say happy first official day of spring. We just started spring yesterday, so
it feels like summer already.
No,
I like the summer when I'm by a pool and drinks, and I don't have to worry about anything, and I'm just relaxed. I hate it when it's really hot. Today it was really hot over here. Yeah, and I'm just ugh.
It was pretty okay here. It was
hot.
It's not that hot here, so
it was hot.
I can't relate.
I was like, ew. I was like, oh no, the summer. I'm gonna become a vampire. Just stay in my room. I'm like,
Yeah.
ugh.
Near the
No.
AC. Don't bother me.
Yeah.
But yeah, happy first day of spring.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let us know if you have any things coming up, or any plans for spring break. I don't know. We don't do spring break because we're too old already. But what
gotta
are you
work.
doing? I know. What are you doing for spring break? But yeah. Anything else? Am I forgetting anything else?
Nope, that's it.
That's it. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
Ahí nos vemos. Adiós.
Bye.
Muchachos, muchachas.
Stay spooky.
That's okay.
Bye.